Are you recording?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't know that.
it's because I'm counting in yet. Definitely episode 8, something about ghosts. Ready?
Ghosts with the mosts.
I'm gonna count you in.
Ghosts with the most roasts. I currently do not believe in ghosts.
5,
Ghost roasting. Oh,
4, 3. Any more jokes?
nope.
2.
Welcome and thank you for being here for this episode of Deathinitely, the show that takes death seriously so you don't have to. I'm your host, Allison Danger, your internet death daddy, your carry-on courier, your varsity death virtuoso, who's on a quest to learn everything about death and pass that knowledge along to you. As the pallbearer of the death papers, the lady who puts the fun in funeral for your ears. In today's episode, we're talking about paranormal activity, or the science of ghosts, during this year's spooky season.
Ooh.
Oh, so scary. And with me as always is producer and editor, Jordan Middlebrook.
That's me.
Are you scared?
I'm absolutely terrified. I'm definitely terrified.
Oh, you did it, you guys. If you like what you hear on Definitely and want to know more, check out the show notes for all the social connections and things like citations, links, and other internet word noise. Definitely is an independent show and is made possible by generous people like you. If you want to know all the things fun, funny, and funereal, please be sure to subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Trigger warning, Definitely is a show that talks about death.
Allison,
Yes.
the Ghost Rider. Not Nick Cage's Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider.
The Ghost Rider.
So if he's just a flaming skull that sits at a desk and like angrily scratches out somebody else's story,
Or
he's the Ghost Rider.
Or he's angrily typing letters to the editor and complaining about something.
Right. We're going to talk about ghostly words in history, though. We're not going to
Okay.
talk about Nicolas Cage movies or comic books.
Ghost
this
writing.
Ghost Rider.
Ghost words.
Let's just get started.
Ghost letters.
If we want to talk about ghosts, the paranormal, the supernatural, and a whole big group of things that might evoke thoughts of psychic forces or superheroes, we need to lay down a few ground rules before we get started. Firstly, I'm a believer in science. The scientific method and being hypercritical of something until it can be proven. I'm a born skeptic. I also understand and realize that as I take in new information, assimilate that information, and re-examine my view of the world and all of the things in it, that my views, understandings, and beliefs can change over time. Think about something like alchemy, considered a form of magic where you combine, create, or transform elements. Medieval alchemy didn't have peer-reviewed journals and documented conditions. This was magic and people were in awe. Alchemy was the granddaddy of chemistry. It's easy with hindsight to see how they correlate, and most wouldn't argue that chemistry is a science that has been tried and tested and true to our current understanding of how matter reacts to other matter. Peer review, journals, experiment, recreation, and hard facts come from today's chemistry, but it was born out of alchemy. I guess what I'm saying in a long and evidentiary-based way is that I currently do not believe in ghosts, but there is still a lot of the universe out there to be discovered. Cautiously optimistic skeptic then. So science is a study and method that is provable with quantitative, measurable data that produces data-driven facts. What then is pseudoscience? If normal is what quite literally is the norm or average, what is paranormal? If natural is the way and laws of nature, what is supernatural? Since this is the ghost episode, let's start with the...
Sorry. You started talking
That's
too
okay.
fast.
Let's start with the paranormal. A term coined in the 1920s was a described phenomenon beyond the scope of current understanding, i.e., we can't prove it scientifically, but there are heaps of anecdotal evidence across many cultures and over large periods of time. Alchemy would have fallen into the category of the paranormal if it existed in medieval times. Now, with current science-based methods, chemistry is known and understood as science, but this science-based method application as we get better and smarter as people don't always yield positive results. Phrenology is a casualty of the scientific method. What would have qualified as a paranormal phenomenon has since been proven to be scientifically untrue. Turns out it wasn't normal or paranormal. It was just a junk theory. Things that would fall into the paranormal category today are things like ESP, telekinetics, ghosts, spirits, both evil and benign, life after death, reincarnation falls weirdly here, cryptids, faith healing, human auras, psychic forces, and human energy fields. You don't have nothing to say about any of those?
No, not yet.
Oh, he must be tired. That was rife with Jordanisms just ready to go.
Well, the one thing that I do find kind of interesting is how cryptids falls under paranormal, with the definition of paranormal as in something
Unproven.
ununderstandable.
No, it's unproven or unprovable, but there's tons of anecdotal evidence about it.
Okay.
So if you take something like the Mothman, there's people that study it, and Chicago is like a hotspot for Mothman sightings.
All right.
So there's tons of anecdotal evidence, even though we don't have it like a feather from him or whatever else that we can test.
It's interesting that you went to the Mothman for a cryptid and you didn't say Bigfoot.
So ghosts, eh? What are they? Are they real and not yet scientifically verifiable? Or are they another phenomenon that can be explained away as confirmation bias? Ghosts, aka apparitions, haunts, phantoms, poltergeist, shades, specters, spirits, spooks, wraiths, demons or ghouls, revenants or bogies, souls, psyches, or psychopomps. They're all understood to be the energy left behind when someone or something dies. Their consciousness or soul, if you believe in that kind of thing. Belief in ghosts dates back to pre-literate cultures across all areas of the world. Etymology for these words spans hundreds of years and many more miles, with them all coming from ancient civilizations and languages as far back as can be traced. Coming from words that meant something like fury, anger, terrible, ugly, rage, fear, shivering, trembling, lord of fury, breath, and blast.
Lord of Breath and Blast. That sounds like a Mountain
Lord
Dew
of Trembling.
The Lord of Shivering.
The
Lord of
Angry, Terrible, Ugly Rage. That's what a ghost is.
Not Casper, though.
Oh, he was cute.
Like Devon Sawa Casper.
No. Like the cartoon ghost Casper. He hung out with Christina Ricci and stuff. You wish you were Casper.
Yeah, I'd keep her.
Aww. One of the least judgmental terms for a ghost arose from the Anglo-Saxon Gospels of the Bible, referencing both evil spirits and the Spirit of God, giving the idea of the spirit to be as the living person or entity was, not in and of itself a different persona. So if you die a good person, your ghost would be good. If you die a bad person, your ghost would be bad. Because the idea is that if it's a spirit of God, then it can't be inherently bad. Spirits can't be inherently bad.
But that's kind of the opposite of what you just said. You said
spirits. No, I said the opposite.
I'm saying yeah. So I'm wrong with saying what I said.
Yes.
But you just said...
Do you want me to do it again?
No. The Spirit of God...
The Bible references evil spirits and the Spirit of God.
But you said spirits can't inherently be evil unless they were evil in real life?
You can't be inherently evil. Like, not all spirits are evil. Some are good, some are bad. Yeah. So you can be evil as a spirit, but not all spirits are bad.
Okay.
Yes?
That makes sense, yes. But what about
like every time you go to the bathroom and you go number 2, you also go number 1, but every time you go to the bathroom you do number 1, you don't also always do number 2?
That actually makes it a lot easier to understand.
Wow. Okay.
So what about ghost encounters,
Peas
Allison?
and poos on today's episode.
Definitely.
Definitely did not want to talk about the toilet, and here we are.
We've gone, 8 episodes without toilet humor?
It was bound to happen.
Eventually.
Peas and poos. Farts and craps.
Now, you were talking when I asked you about ghost encounters. So I'm going to ask again. What about ghost encounters, Allison?
That all-powerful anecdotal information comes from people that have paranormal experiences, which is not me. For this episode, I have with me the founder and president of the Georgina Paranormal Society to discuss her involvement and experiences with the paranormal. Her name is Linda Queerno. Welcome, Linda.
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm okay, thank you. I'd sent Linda a couple of questions ahead of time, so we're just going to start off with kind of the big, easy one, and what got you interested in studying the paranormal and into ghost hunting in the first place?
Well, I kind of fell into it innocently because when I was about 4, I had some paranormal experiences up at the family cottage in the Laurentians in Quebec. And luckily, my parents were really understanding. They were great. They never said, no, there's no such thing. And they never did that. They were great. They just said, tell me about what you saw. Mm-hmm. Tell me about what you experienced. So I was pretty lucky. So that piqued my interest. I started to lose the capability of seeing them when I was about, 6 or 7. But that never deterred me from wanting to explore this crazy world of, the supernatural. So basically I became known as the ghost lady in grade school and high school and CEGEP and university. So people would come and ask me all kinds of questions because I had this fascination with it, and I could easily lose hours and hours reading about it and researching the paranormal and talking to people about it. So
you were the expert.
I kind of fell into it.
That's great. You said you lost the ability. Did you work at regaining it at all?
I lost the ability to actually see ghosts and spirits. However, I never really lost the ability to sense that there was something in the atmosphere that was different, so that I knew that something was around me.
Right. And that the seeing never came back to you, did it?
Not really, although I have had experiences in this crazy field that I've been doing for 43 years. I have seen things.
Yes.
Again, that honestly, I can't explain other than that they're ghosts.
What kept you interested in ghost lore or ghost finding, or what's kind of kept you interested all these years?
I think what's kept me interested is people. I really like talking to people, and I really like the idea that there is something beyond this life that seems very nebulous, but every once in a while we kind of see glimpses into whatever that might be. So I think that's really what keeps me interested and has kept me interested for years.
Cool. Are you religious in any way?
I'll say that I used to be quite religious. I was raised Roman Catholic. My father was very, very religious. So we went to church every Sunday. I actually became a church secretary up here in Georgina and was one for quite a few years. Okay. But that was, of course, after I had already been a paranormal investigator. Right. So I was kind of asked by the priest who hired me, don't mention this.
I see.
But I used to be, but I can safely say that I am a very spiritual person. I have various beliefs in various spiritualities. That's what I'll say.
Okay, fair enough. How do you reconcile your experience with the paranormal with that religious side of your upbringing?
I think as a small person, when I saw things and could feel things around me, I think that then I just equated it to, well, yes, there is an afterlife, right? Because that's what I was taught. Right. So I think going forward, I have never really lost that belief system. And I really just do believe that there is an afterlife. However you want to explain it, whatever religious, belief you have. I think I just equated it with whatever I was taught. Yeah. Going forward, I never really lost that belief. I mean, I totally believe that there's something beyond this.
That's really interesting that the priest or that the church was kind of mum on the subject, because, their whole shtick, this is coming from a non-religious person, is the afterlife, the salvation, the resurrection, all those kinds of great things when you're talking about Christian-based religion. So I'm really surprised that they were not excited to have that conversation. We've got somebody here who's a proponent of the afterlife, and that they didn't want you to speak about that's really surprising.
To me, it's actually not really surprising when you look at the fact that at various places in the Bible it says, that you shouldn't dabble in the supernatural or fortune telling or anything like that. Right. And so many people equate ghost investigation with that kind of thing, that we are dabbling in something that we really shouldn't dabble in. So I could understand it from that perspective. And we do, of course, sometimes invite mediums or people like that to come with us. So in that way, I can understand. But it's really interesting that when I was there, a lot of the times when people would call, I would answer the phone and they would ask to speak to a priest. And if the priest wasn't there, I would ask what the issue was. And they would say, well, I don't think I should tell you because you're probably going to think I'm crazy. And I knew instantaneously.
Yeah, you got a ghost, huh?
You got a ghost. You need a house blessing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I not growing up in a formalized religious doctrine, I would say. I don't have those kinds of pressures, but I'm very much of the opposite kind of end of the spectrum. If you can't research it or prove it or have that, quantifiable Excel spreadsheet table of data, I have a really hard time with it. So I always tell people I'm an optimistic skeptic, because it's really, really presumptuous for me to say that I understand the entire world and all of its workings, or the entire universe and all of its workings. How is it that I can say that we don't know what's going on, or I do know, and that a ghost or a paranormal activity doesn't exist? Well, there's things like, dark matter in the universe that has just been discovered and, has a vast impact on things like gravitational fields. So there's something to be said about those things that we just can't quantify yet. So I guess my battle is that I want to find the next way to be able to quantify these experiences so that I can say, oh yeah, like that's I got that in my spreadsheet here. Check it out.
I love that, because being an investigator is really interesting. And having been an investigator for, 43 years, it's incredible how the field has really changed. And there are different kinds of investigative teams. So, you've got the scientifically based ones that have every piece of equipment in their arsenal. And then, of course, you've got the other that they don't use equipment at all. They go in with their senses, they bring their dowsing rods, they bring crystals, they bring all of that stuff.
Right.
And the team that I actually founder of and director of, we tread the middle line.
That's cool.
We go both ways, which is a good way, I think, to be, because on the one hand, you've got some equipment that, it's great when people want verification. They want clarification. They want to know what's going on. But it's also good because also speak to the people that feel things and are more sensitive maybe to atmospheric changes or EMFs or whatever. So we do tread that middle line and we try to find proof. But, until a dead guy taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, this is the nature of the universe. I'm not gonna know.
Yeah, exactly. Unlocking the mysteries of the universe isn't an easy task. Well, hopefully we'll figure it out, but I don't know that we'll be the statue on that plaque. Have you come across anything as far as like a scientific experiment or a scientific apparatus that you think has a little bit more, what's the word? A little bit more authenticity? Yeah, that's the word. Authenticity. When you're bringing in those things, like you're talking about the sixth sense of feeling apparitions or feeling ghosts or feeling spirits, the temperature changes, all of those things that are built into our mechanics. But what are the things that you're seeing that really kind of are breaking open the mold about paranormal investigation?
Well, I really like the scientific gadgets, but I'm really skeptical of scientific gadgets because everything and anything can go wrong. Things can happen. Batteries can die. You could have a power failure, and if something's plugged in, you're toast. So with me, I don't know. I can safely say, though, that I think it's the common denominator of experience that makes me really excited, because there's so much going on in the field, so many teams out there, and I think the compilation of all of the data that everybody has, we can all agree on specific things. For example, like you said, temperature. So we can agree on that. We can agree on electromagnetic fields and how they affect an individual, an area, or interaction with, a seemingly ghostly or an entity, that kind of thing. So I think it's just all of that. It's all the data. Some of the data is skewed, I know. Some of the data is wrong, I get it. But I think it's those commonalities that we all can have in an investigative experience. That really makes me excited.
The totality of the evidence is what gives it the authenticity.
Yes.
Okay, cool. When we come to talking about death and dying, and this, of course, being the result of that, things like the law or medicine, faith-based idea, ethics, everybody's got a different definition of what it means to actually die or be dead. So can you, just for conversationally sake, where do you sit on that spectrum?
Well,
or does it change with each of those topics?
Well, actually, I think, we all have our ideas about when death actually happens and what it means to be dead. I think that physical death happens when, there is no heartbeat, there's, no circulation, there's no brain activity, is toast. That person is done. And I think that's what death is to me. It's the ceasing to exist of the physical body. But, that certainly isn't the end, because we're talking about energy. And that's really what it is. I mean, really what we're talking about is, the earth suit. When the earth suit is devoid of that kind of essence or that energy, that's death to me.
Okay, that's great. And that's a pretty widely accepted idea from the people that I've talked to about that kind of more existential question. That's where a lot of people fall on that scale, is that, our essence of who we are is our living being. So if that continues on, then you've got comfort in knowing that you continue. You're just not wearing your meat machine powered by a bone, endoskeleton.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does your belief in the paranormal, does your experience with the paranormal, has it ever given you grief, or does it only give you comfort?
I think it's given me both,
Okay.
to tell you the honest truth. It gives me comfort because I truly do believe that there's something more, and that we are energy, and that energy can't be destroyed. It goes on. And I think that energy goes through its own evolution as well. And I think that because we are all energetic beings, in that we all have a certain essence. And, me, the energy of Linda, and you, the energy of Allison, we're totally different energies, but we're energy. So that energy, wherever it goes and however it interacts with the universe, is, it's very, it's unique, right? So that it gives me comfort to know that I will live on. Whatever I'm going to be doing, I don't know, but I'll live on in some way.
Right.
But it has given me grief, this whole thing, because I have come into contact with some energies that are not very nice.
Fair.
And that's not a very good thing
to
happen. So it has given me grief. Energies have followed me home from certain locations, and that hasn't been very nice either. So learning to deal with that as a fledgling paranormal investigator was a difficult thing to do. But now, of course, having done this for so long, I'm aware that there are certain ways that you can block that energy. There are certain ways that you can tell that energy it's not welcome in your space or your environment. Right. But yeah, it's given me a lot of grief. There are certain energies that I don't like, and that obviously don't like me and don't like the people that I do this with. So it's been hard.
Yeah, I guess there's not really a 311 for, paranormal, cleansing of a space. Hi guys, I just need you to come over for a few minutes. Well, I guess so many things are learned through trial and error, but hopefully now that there's more light and more attention given to the paranormal space, is that you have those kind of communities, you have those lines of communication through social media and websites and everything else, and the Paranormal Society in and of itself, to share those things with other people, so that the grief that you've experienced doesn't translate to the new or newer investigators.
Yes, that's true. And I mean, make no mistake, there are different paranormal teams, different philosophies, and there's such a thing in this field that, I don't even know if we're ever going to get there, called paranormal unity. And I don't think that paranormal unity can exist at this moment in time, because so many people in the field have so many different ideas about things. They criticize one another. There's no governing body for paranormal investigations.
Right.
So it's a difficult thing. I mean, really a difficult thing. So we coast and we do as much as we can and we try to get along.
Oh, that's unfortunate. And I think that exists in any sort of realm of, exploration, because ideas are new. They are interesting. They're, cutting edge. So when you have all these things going on, you could say that when the idea of survival of the fittest came on the prowl, people kind of shook their head and were like, what is going on? And now it's, that's very Darwinian of you. It's just become part of what we understand to be true. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, and hopefully that groups can continue to come together as people get more and more comfortable with, that kind of exploration.
I agree. I agree. And I think that there's so many, everybody's experience of the paranormal and evidence of the paranormal is vastly different. And there are so many things that people say, things that people do, things that people experience that are common, but there are others that are not. So it's all very individual. And that's a difficult thing for some people because they want hard evidence, but sometimes the evidence is very soft.
Subtle evidence. And I was digging into a little bit of research for the other parts of this podcast and coming across anecdotal research and anecdotal evidence. It's still evidence, listening to people's stories, listening to those verbal accounts. We were a verbal society before we were a written society. And the importance of sharing those pieces of information and stories become a part of the evidential backbone of different sciences.
Oh, absolutely. When I got my degree, I minored in folklore. And
cool.
That was fantastic because you realize, you're right, the importance of those shared stories and the amalgamation of all of them, how they define a society, how they define a community. And that's one of the reasons why when I formed the Georgina Paranormal Society, I wanted to have free meetings, public meetings, because I wanted people to have a safe space to share their information, their experiences, their ideas even. And I wanted skeptics to come too, to say, so tell me, what happened to you? And like I keep saying, there's those commonalities of experience. And it's great because when you've had something happen to you that you can't explain, you do feel alone and you feel kind of bizarre and you think you may be losing your mind. So when you tell your story in a safe place and someone else or two or three other people raise their hand and go, yeah, well, that happened to me too, you suddenly don't feel so crazy. You suddenly don't feel so stupid, or you suddenly don't feel, as if, you should be wiping the floor with your, your brain. It's such a great thing. And I think it brings people together. And I think it defines what a paranormal experience or what evidence truly is or can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, for the people that are listening along, when I came to the last meeting, I was absolutely blown away by the diversity of people that were at the meeting, the size of the group. I would say there's probably between 60 and 100 people there. And it was really great to learn the history of our local cemetery. Linda and I are from the same area. So to learn some of the historical families in our area and names on streets that we've grown up with and get the familial information about them, but to see the diversity in the people. And I had made a brief announcement at the last meeting, and I had a number of people come up and chat to me about working in the death care industry, what my experiences have been, how do I do it? What do I do? So it opened that conversation to death and dying and working in the death care space that was really, really engaging. People that you would never stop to chat to on the street, and they were pulling me aside to be like, oh, what's this and what's that? And it was really wonderful to have death brought to the forefront of the conversation. It was a group of people who were interested about learning about death, and that was so wonderful.
You know what? I'm so happy to hear that, because I think it's so important that we take the fear out of death and dying. And I've always thought that, and that's why we always hold our meetings at a funeral home, because really it's a place where people are supposed to gather. And if they gather in this place for other reasons other than just specifically mourning. If they gather in a space like that to share anecdotes and experiences and have, a great time with like-minded people, then it does kind of take that stigma away from that specific location, because it's really a gathering place, and it's not a place to be afraid of. There's a lot of love in a place like that.
Yeah. And from a care perspective as well. Like, I've worked in funeral homes for 20 years, and I've never experienced a paranormal activity or an experience like that, but I have been around a lot of people that have died. And what I can say is it really is a caring industry, and all the people that I work with and that are in those buildings, they don't do it to get rich. They don't do it to, to get thanks or accolades. It's because they're there to care for the people that are gone. So I think that caring translates from, death care into, that paranormal investigation. It's another way of caring for the people that are gone, to be interested in the grave sites and the history of the people that have gone before us. So again, it's a really great way to share that interconnectivity between people and that caring in that industry. I think that's wonderful.
Well, I'm so glad you feel that way. And I also believe that, paranormal experiences, most paranormal experiences that people have are visitations from loved ones. And, the whole media, of course, loves the sensationalistic aspect of everything that's paranormal. Wandering around in graveyards and getting maybe grabbed by the foot by a strange hand that sort of suddenly comes out of a grave.
Right.
People love that stuff. And there's definitely a market for it, but most paranormal experiences are actually quite lovely, and they're relatives or friends, acquaintances coming back to make you understand that their essence is still there and that they're okay.
Right.
So by bringing all of this into the atmosphere of the funeral home, I think it really helps to solidify the whole fact that really it's nothing to be afraid of. It's actually something to celebrate, because we're celebrating their lives. So I think it's important.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, do you have any questions for me?
Well, I'm fascinated by what you do. I think it's really interesting because you're there after that sort of life, as we know it, that biological process has left the building. I mean,
which maybe informs why I'm not being, targeted at the funeral home, because I guess if it's my first day as a ghost, am I going to hang out with the chick at the funeral home? No, I'm probably going to go see my family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this must give you a lot of food for thought while you're doing your job. You do it with a lot of care. You respect the person.
Oh, of course.
You take care of the person. You want to bring that love and that attention and care to that person, so the family will, be comforted in some way. And I thank you for doing what you do, because I don't know if I could do that. Somebody has to, and I'm so glad that it's a person like you who understands it. And
that's very sweet. I always tell my girlfriend, who's a nurse, that I feel the same way about her. I could not be with people as they were ill and while they're dying. That is something that I couldn't handle. But to be able to give them autonomy in their passing, and to me, a dead person is a vulnerable person. They can't speak for themselves. They can't protect themselves. They can't advocate for themselves. So that's my job. My job is to advocate for the people that have passed away.
Well, I'm so pleased that you have taken this on, because that's quite a calling.
Well, I don't know how I got here, but I like where I ended up.
Good. That's good to hear.
What is your most favorite thing about being a paranormal investigator and working with the Paranormal Society?
I really think that my most favorite thing is the people that I get to meet and interact with, the experiences that I have with the people. And my team is an amazing team. We're all women. We've all got our own specialities. And I think it's just, A, it's fun. B, it's incredibly, informative, educational, all of those things. And we get to meet some really great people. And I think that's That's a really great thing. And honestly, whatever we do and whatever experiences we manage to have and document adds to that whole repertoire out there. And that makes me feel happy too.
Yeah, that's wonderful. If anything, do you have a least favorite part?
Probably when we interact with people who are less than kind, because, and that's one of the reasons we don't often post any evidence. Usually we don't anyway, because we do a lot of residential investigations.
Yeah.
And of course, there's that
confidentiality for sure.
Absolutely. And going over all of that evidence when you're out on a long investigation, it's really tiring to do that. But I think those are the only things that might be a little icky.
Right.
But,
Well, you're being very sweet about internet trolls, but yeah, I would say that they fall into the realm of icky.
Yes. Icky is a good word.
Yeah, that's a good word. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Linda. I hope that you all get a chance to check out the Georgina Paranormal Society website and get in contact. Did you want to plug any of your socials or anything else where people can find you?
They can find me various places, Georgina Paranormal Society on Facebook. You can definitely Google us. We're everywhere. And don't forget that, if you happen to watch Paranormal Survivor on TV, I happen to be on seasons 3, 4, and 5, which is a really interesting thing. We'll have to talk about it. And I do a YouTube show called Paranormally Speaking, so you can catch that on Sunday evenings, and you can look that up too.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fun.
Allison, is there such thing as ghost science? Not Ghostbusters, because they were all scientists.
Oh, what were their areas of study? Do you know offhand?
Oh, wow, that's a great question.
Come on, movie buff.
Venkman was
one of them was a psychiatrist, weren't they?
Parapsychologist, I think.
Oh, they studied the psychology of the dead?
No, I think it had to do with, this is Venkman, so that would have been Bill Murray's role.
Okay.
I think his had to do with how the mind interacts with other minds.
Okay. Psychic abilities?
Yeah, something like that. So
okay.
It's parapsychiatric.
Sure. They're fictional characters, so.
Yeah, but they were real scientists. That's the thing.
No. They're still fictional characters.
Yeah, they are, yes. Stantz? What was Stantz? Ray Stantz. I don't remember. I can't remember. And then Spangler.
He was my favorite.
Egon Spangler. I always considered him to be the leader, even though he was kind of like the nerdy guy.
Yeah, it's because he's the best.
And then I guess Winston wasn't a scientist, because Winston Zeddemore was more of just a...
Zeddmore's a pretty rad name.
Yeah, he was high. He was their hire. They were trying to they put out an ad for another one.
But what was Spangler? You didn't tell me what Spangler was.
I can't remember.
Okay, so now we're going to end up having to watch Ghostbusters. I know it's coming.
So Allison, ghost science. Back on track, ghost science. Tell me about it.
Yes. Paranormal activity stays paranormal until it can be proven or disproven. Usually through scientific investigation of various hypotheses tried and tried again to get to the point of science or bunk. Currently, paranormal investigation techniques involve the use of photography, videography, audio recording, experiential feelings, EMF meters, thermometers, thermographic imaging, and night vision goggles, awesome, or cameras and spirit boxes or motion detectors.
Allison, I got a quick question for you. In that list of paranormal investigation techniques, you said experiential. Do you mean like tingling on the back of your neck? Is that what you mean by? Okay.
More anecdotal evidence. People go in and they experience things repeatedly, so that becomes part of the information that's collected.
All right, then.
As Linda mentioned earlier, most paranormal investigators feel something going on, and it can be difficult to describe. The science of ghost hunting is a difficult nut to crack, and usually because of confirmation bias. Most paranormal researchers or skeptics go into a situation with a bias to if they believe that something paranormal exists. Both groups seek out answers to confirm their already established theory. Researchers in Australia conducted research that states it's all about energy consumption. It costs the body less energy or mental power to continue to believe a falsehood than to take in, assimilate, and confront the incorrect information we have already. Here's an excerpt from the article. Misinformation is especially likely to stick when it conforms to our pre-existing political, religious, or social point of view. Because of this, ideology and personal worldviews can be especially difficult obstacles to overcome. This means that if you believe something for political or religious reasons, it's far harder to change a person's mind and have them understand a fact that differs from their opinion. In both cases of the skeptic and the believer, all the information gleaned confirms what they already believe. But what does the science say? What about the science?
What about the science, Allison? What about the science?
Come on, science. We'll get you there. Skeptics can poke holes in all of the current methodologies that were mentioned earlier, and they do so in a couple of ways. Skeptics invoke the scientific method, and because a paranormal encounter cannot be in a controlled setting or repeated in the same circumstances, proper science-based evidence isn't able to be recorded in sterile conditions. EMF and motion capture tech are prone to difficulty because they are tracking things that we and many other items can produce in a given situation. So what about other science-based ghost tracking systems? The reality is that a device or scientific theory that is already proven to exist, but be extrapolated and applied to that quantifiable level for skeptics to jump off their skeptical ship. The use of chemistry, physics, and even particle theory or quantum mechanics could be applied if more people understood those things at the level that allowed them to be applied to ghost hunting. Things on the edge of the universe can be seen and understood through painstaking math and science. Maybe we are looking with the wrong tools or in the wrong places at the wrong time for what we think might be there. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've been around thousands of dead bodies, literal thousands, and have never once had a paranormal experience. I am a skeptic and will continue to be until I'm given the opportunity or experience or data to change my mind. That said, I also know that the universe is big and a virtually undiscovered place. Humans now, during our information revolution, still know only a fraction of what is knowable. I would be presumptuous and an egomaniac if I was to say I know enough about the universe to say that ghosts are for sure not real. If you'd like to learn more about this topic, you can check and see if you have a local paranormal society. They are great resources for anecdotal evidence and people that are willing to share the chilling experiences that they've experienced.
Chilling experiences.
If you want to learn more about the science of matter and detection, your local high school science teacher or physics teacher would be a cool starting point. Still, physicists, astrologists, chemists, and futurists would all have a notion of where to find the elusive in the universe.
Elusive in the universe.
Oh, I wish you were more elusive. Are you trying not to encourage me?
Yeah.
Or?
Be elusive in the universe. Also, what are you reading?
Lots of back issues and volumes of the academic journal called Mortality, an interdisciplinary academic journal focused on all things death studies. Hey, Jordan, are you still hosting By the Wayside?
Well, October's a really fun month, Allison, and yes, I am still hosting By the Wayside.
Spooky season.
The show that is not spooky in any way, shape, or form, but its job is to introduce you to creative people. Well, not just you, the audience, of course. I had a really awesome October of interviewing a couple hosts from another podcast.
Oh, dang.
A movie-centric podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got to introduce the audience to two illustrators.
Sweet.
Like internationally known and award-winning illustrators.
Cool.
So if anyone's interested in checking it out, it's waysideshow.com, and you get to see my beautiful face, talk to some amazing people, and you get to see the comic shop that we record out of, the Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Cool. You're a busy guy.
Super busy.
I'm going to make me a podcast too.
Elusive technology. Or whatever.
Elusive podcast.
Whatever we said earlier.
Definitely wants to take death seriously so you don't have to. Creating a safe and inclusive space that tackles the mundane, profound, and crazy parts of death that you don't feel like asking anywhere else. Listen, participate, comment, love, learn. We're happy you're here. The next episode this spooky season is about everyone's favorite monster, the vampire. Vampthropology. We'll talk about the anthropology of vampires, how they associate with Victorian death practices, and what they can mean psychologically for our understanding of death.
Understanding of death.
Wow. Definitely is an independent show that is recorded on the ancestral homes of several Mississauga and Chippewas First Nations. We honor these Indigenous peoples, ancestors, and future generations on this land that we share with reverence and humility. I've been your host, Allison Danger. With me, as always, is Jordan Middlebrook, and our music's from Sound Bay. Thank you for listening to DEATHinitely, the show that takes death seriously.
So you don't have to.
Wow.